Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating piece of writing by Professor Balakrishnan Shankar, and honestly, it tackles an idea that might completely flip how you view reality. We're going to explore how ancient spiritual knowledge and modern scientific discoveries are basically colliding to reveal the exact same universal truths. It's like a giant cosmic puzzle, and we're going to unpack it step by step.
To set the stage here, I want you to consider a pretty radical question. What if the world's most advanced scientific laboratory wasn't packed with multi-million-dollar equipment, but actually existed entirely within the human mind? I know, it sounds a bit like a paradox at first. We're so conditioned to think of science as something that happens out there, right? Something that requires physical tools to measure external things. But the text we're diving into suggests a radical alternative. That deep internal reflection can actually yield the exact same data as rigorous external observation.
Okay, let's dive into this comparison. The source breaks this dynamic down just beautifully. Think about the modern scientist for a second. Their laboratory is entirely external. They study physical objects using these incredibly powerful tools, microscopes, telescopes, to magnify the outside world. But in contrast, you have the ancient Indian rishi or sage. Their laboratory is completely internal. They study the subject itself, which is consciousness, using the ultimate tool, the still mind. The author asserts that both the scientist and the rishi are deeply, passionately dedicated to finding the truth behind nature. They're just looking in completely opposite directions to find it.
To really ground this concept of the internal laboratory, the author brings in a quote from the spiritual leader Amma. She says, "Few of us ever try to still the mind, but in reality, it is from the still mind that many wondrous discoveries and inventions have taken birth." The text really emphasizes this idea that infinite knowledge is essentially just waiting to unfold within us. By bypassing the physical limitations of our senses and our restless minds, you can tap into pure intelligence. And as we'll see, the ancient texts provide some absolutely stunning examples of this internal research. Let's start with the sheer, massive scale of the cosmos.
This concept becomes mind-blowingly clear when we look at ancient Hindu cosmology. I mean, the numbers here are just staggering. We start with our current era, the Kali Yuga, sitting at 432,000 years. Then, it scales up dramatically. 4 combined yugas make a Mahayuga, which is 4.32 million years. Take 1,000 Mahayugas and you get a Kalpa, or a day of Brahma, which spans an unbelievable 4.32 billion years. And a full cycle, a day and night of Brahma, that's 8.64 billion years. What's truly incredible about these numbers is that they aren't just mythological poetry. The source points out how they align shockingly well with modern scientific estimates for the age of the universe following the Big Bang.
And you know what's crazy? We actually have major external validation for this. The author points this out by quoting none other than the legendary astronomer Carl Sagan. He noted that it's literally the only religion in which the timescales correspond to those of modern scientific cosmology. It's uncanny, right? Ancient thinkers operating with absolutely zero modern technological equipment mapped out these massive cycles of cosmic expansion and contraction that we are only just now verifying with modern astrophysics.
So the really crucial point here is that this ancient knowledge wasn't just limited to, these grand concepts of time. It extended directly into space and our physical senses, specifically acoustics. The ancient texts describe space as the medium for vibrations, and they identify as the primordial vibration from which all others stem. Now, this primordial sound is much more than just a chant. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a pure representation of acoustic physics. The sounds A, U, and M physically cover the entire human vocal apparatus, starting from the base of the throat all the way to the lips. According to the source, it literally represents the sum total of all harmonic frequencies combined.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. If you compare a standard scientific graph showing a harmonic series of wave frequencies directly to an X-ray of a conch shell, the match is just uncanny. The conch is the traditional symbol used by ancient rishis to represent Aum and the creation of the universe. Just look at how perfectly that internal spiral structure of the shell matches those harmonic wave patterns. The text suggests that the ancients who selected the conch to represent space inherently understood harmonics. They might have even possessed a deep knowledge of the hidden internal geometry of the shell itself.
Now, this kind of interconnectedness seamlessly leads us right into the wild world of modern quantum physics. Today, science tells us that fundamentally everything is energy and that the universe is this deeply interconnected, entangled network where particles can influence each other instantly across vast distances. While the source draws a direct parallel between this quantum entanglement and pure consciousness,
The argument goes that if you purify the mind, you can actually pick up on these subtle cosmic vibrations. It shares this powerful anecdote about Alma's mother, Damayanti Alma. She would instantly know exactly when her baby was crying from far away, and her physical body would respond immediately to nurse. It's presented as this lived, biological example of this quantum-like, instantaneous interconnectedness of consciousness. And get this deep internal knowing actually managed to manifest in ancient physical artifacts too. Take these stone carvings from an ancient temple in Tamil Nadu, India. They clearly and very accurately depict the hidden stages of fetal development inside the womb. I mean, just consider this for a second. How on earth could ancient civilizations accurately carve the inner growth of an embryo into solid stone walls without the aid of modern ultrasound technology? The author points to visuals exactly like this as physical evidence of a highly advanced knowledge base derived completely from that internal laboratory of the mind.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer, shocking mathematical precision the author uses to back this up. When you compare data from an ancient astronomical text called the Surya Siddhanta directly with modern astronomical data, the alignment is striking. Look at Mercury's revolution. It's 87.97 days in the ancient text compared to 87.969 days measured today. Or the Earth's revolution around the Sun, 365.26 days in both sets of data. They calculated the precise orbits of planets millions of miles away, right down to the seconds without radar or deep space probes. The author argues that this is definitive proof of tapping into pure intelligence, a source of knowledge that totally bypasses our limited human senses.
But listen, this isn't just some phenomenon locked away in the ancient past. It actually applies to the modern scientific method we use today. The text shares this really remarkable story about scientists from Stanford University who visited Alma. They were trying to study if there were specific genes or biological markers for compassion. Operating from a place of deep internal intuition, Alma logically designed an experiment for them right then and there. She said, separate a mother monkey from her child, take a baseline blood sample, then remove the barrier, and when the mother feels that intense rush of love upon reuniting, take a second sample to map the biological shift in hormones. It's a perfectly sound, highly practical scientific experiment, handed down effortlessly by a spiritual leader. It really shows how profound intuition can directly guide empirical scientific inquiry.
So all of this interconnectedness we've been talking about, it eventually brings us to a mathematical fingerprint that unites the whole shebang, 1.618. You might know this as the golden ratio. It's mathematically derived from the Fibonacci sequence, where every number is the sum of the previous two. And when you divide those numbers, you continuously hit this specific endless ratio. According to the source, this number represents a universal intelligence. It's a literal mathematical blueprint, repeating over and over again throughout the cosmos.
Let's look at how beautifully this actually shows up in biology. You can take that golden ratio spiral and it overlays perfectly onto the anatomy of the human brain, the very physical organ of our mind. And, incredibly, the exact same mathematical proportions govern the delicate, symmetrical wings of a butterfly. So whether it's the most complex organ in human biology or the graceful design of an insect, the author highlights how this precise 1.618 blueprint dictates the structure.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this intelligent design scales up to epic proportions. That exact same mathematical spiral you find in a tiny nautilus shell, it's perfectly mirrored in the massive swirling arms of a spiral galaxy. The author powerfully notes that seeing the exact same intelligent design used absolutely everywhere, from the smallest shell hiding at the bottom of the ocean to the largest galaxies spanning across deep space, really points to a single underlying universal intelligence behind all of creation.
And really, that brings us to the core thesis of this entire explainer. According to the author, science is slowly but surely moving towards a spiritual understanding of a profoundly interconnected universe. The external gaze of the modern scientist, peering through their telescope, and the internal gaze of the ancient rishi sitting in deep meditation, they appear to simply be two different paths arriving at the exact same destination. So whether you label it quantum entanglement, the golden ratio, or pure consciousness, the truth they uncover is one of profound, undeniable unity. So, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. If the universe truly shares a single blueprint, where exactly does the laboratory of science end and the laboratory of the mind begin? Perhaps they were never truly separate to begin with. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep observing, and whatever you do, never underestimate the boundless, infinite potential waiting right there inside your own internal laboratory.